June 26, 1943. High above northern France, around 27,000 feet, the air was cold, thin, and deceptively calm, as if waiting for violence. In the cockpit of his Focke-Wulf 190, Lieutenant Egon Mayer, or another German pilot of JG Support 26, felt a flicker of triumph at the sight of American milk bottles lumbering into his domain, their bulky shapes climbing laboriously through the stratosphere under the roar of twin Wasp engines. The Thunderbolts of the 56th Fighter Group, flying their first escort missions over occupied Europe. Below, in the bright morning light, the aluminum forms of P-47C Thunderbolts glinted in tight formation, their pilots cautious, inexperienced, but confident that ruggedness and firepower would carry them through. Mayer's lips curled in a disdainful smile as he watched them rise, their climb rate painfully slow compared to the graceful ascents of his FW-190, its radial engines singing in crisp German precision. To a Luftwaffe pilot schooled on dogfights with Spitfires or Bf-109s, these juggernauts looked absurd. Heavy, slow, ungainly, hardly worthy of respect. But Mayer did not yet understand that this encounter would haunt him. Robert S. Johnson, a young lieutenant newly transferred from Eagle Squadron service in the RAF, sat behind the canopy of his P-47, listening to the hum of the Pratt & Whitney R-2800, feeling its strength. He knew he was flying something very different. On this day, he'd been assigned to escort a bomber formation, and as he climbed, he glimpsed the German fighters above, angled in from the sun. The 56th formation rose as one, but their climb was laborious. The P-47's weight and drag made it less nimble, less responsive than the German fighters in turning contests. But that morning, Johnson sensed the fate of the battle would rest not on finesse, but on firepower, durability, and sheer will. When the German flight dove from above in a classic sun ambush maneuver, Mayer and his wingmen struck. Their attacks came in waves. FW-190s screamed down, cannons roaring, lobbing 20mm shells into the American formation. Johnson's P-47 took a first volley. His windshield cracked, fuselage pinged with tracer strikes, hydraulic lines jolted. His formation scattered in defense, but Johnson clung to altitude. He'd learned that in the P-47, you didn't win by turning with the enemy. You survived by refusing to enter a turning duel. Instead, he tried to maintain energy, to keep his speed, to fight on the P-47's terms. As Mayer circled behind him to deliver a finishing blow, firing 3 distinct passes, Johnson's cockpit filled with smoke, his visibility blocked, his engine stuttering under damage, controls sluggish. But he kept pulling the ship into a steady glide toward Allied lines. On each pass, Mayer opened fire. Cannon and machine gun rounds shredded wings, fuselage, cowling. Yet the Thunderbolt held. After expending ammunition, Mayer broke off, flying alongside, saluted, then peeled away. Johnson landed, battered, with over 200 bullet holes across his aircraft, the canopy jammed, and damage beyond what any German pilot had believed possible. This clash, ordinary in its assignment but legendary in its outcome, forced the Luftwaffe to reconsider their contempt for the P-47. For years they had mocked the Jug as a pig of a fighter, too heavy, too bulky, unable to turn or climb as their sleek interceptors could. But when they met Johnson's wrecked but flyable aircraft, stained with holes and punctures, when they saw how much punishment it had taken and still returned to base, the laughter died. They witnessed the strength of the radial engine that lacked vulnerable coolant systems, the rugged airframe that shrugged off hits that would cripple a Bf-109, and the relentless firepower of 8 synchronized 50 caliber Brownings, unleashing a stream of lead that exceeded anything Luftwaffe pilots had ever faced at 300 to 400 yards. The mathematics of destruction were unforgiving. A convergence zone of 8 guns, 3,400 rounds in total, capable of pouring out thousands of rounds per minute. A wall of lead no German fighter had anticipated. From that moment, the balance of aerial combat began to shift. German tactics favored attacks from below, forcing turning engagements, attempts to draw P-47s into their domain. But American pilots adapted. Leaders like Colonel Hubert Zemke and Captain Walker Bud Mahurin pushed the boom and zoom doctrine. Climb high, let the Germans dive toward you, then roll, dive, fire, and climb back, using the P-47's strength in speed, power, and firepower to dominate. As the months passed, Engagements over France and Germany repeatedly validated Johnson's survival and proved that industrial logic could outmatch tactical skill. Tales circulated in German squadrons, aircraft riddled by shells yet flying home, German pilots staring in disbelief at battered Thunderbolts after gun passes, saluting mid-air as if conceding respect. Luftwaffe intelligence reports decrying the P-47's structural strength, firepower, and high-altitude performance as a threat too dangerous to ignore. Mayer himself, once confident in his control of the skies, became emblematic of a shift in mood. Where once the giant American fighters had been dismissed, now they inspired caution, fear, even grudging respect. The German High Command commissioned studies. Reichsmarschall Göring received briefings showing that the P-47's service ceiling exceeded German types. Dive speeds approached compressibility limits. Armor and ruggedness made it nearly impossible to kill in a single pass. The fat target was not fat in vulnerability, but fat in resilience. In the months following that June day, Germany's pilots were reminded again and again of their miscalculation. They had underestimated the American capacity to field not merely elegant fighters, but weapons of attrition. Machines built to absorb punishment, deliver sustained fire, and return home. By mid-1944, as the Allies bombarded Germany and P-47s escorted bombers deep into the Reich, German pilots flew under a new, grim awareness. Attacking through a screen of escorting Thunderbolts meant entering a gun crossfire zone no fighter could survive. Ground attack variants of the P-47 further extended its terror. Rockets, bombs, and cannon strafing missions severed tank columns, destroyed supply convoys, and reduced German movement to nighttime only. In the skies, the derided Jug became a specter of doom. The psychological impact was profound. German pilots developed Jabo fever, anxiety at the mere rumor of P-47 presence, symptoms of dread that once did not exist when facing Spitfires or Bf-109s. When November 26, 1944 saw P-47s chasing German Me-262 jets on takeoff or in high-speed dives, the audacity of the American doctrine became manifest. Even the feared jets were vulnerable when caught in the P-47's envelope. And in the desperate German Operation Bodenplatte on January 1, 1945, when nearly 900 German fighters attacked Allied airfields, one German pilot, upon parachuting into Y-34 airfield and observing factory-fresh P-47s lining the ramp, famously gestured in triumph and asked, "What do you think of that?" The American commander simply pointed to the new fighters and replied, "That is what is beating us." By war's end, the P-47 had wrecked the Luftwaffe's fighter arm not by cleverness, but by relentless output and brutal utility. The laughing of 1943 had been replaced by silence, broken only by the roar of twin Wasp engines and the patter of 50 caliber fire. German aces, once scornful, later admitted they had misjudged the American fighter philosophy. Not light, elegant machines, but armored, overbuilt, overarmed weapons of attrition. In reunions decades later, former Luftwaffe leaders recalled how they'd once mocked the Jug, only to discover too late that the Americans had built a beast they could not outmaneuver, outshoot, or outlast. That June morning when Meyer, confident, smug, adrenaline coursing, descended upon Johnson's formation, he thought victory assured. He did not foresee a battered P-47 refusing to die, refusing to yield, dragging its wounded pilot over hostile territory back to Allied lines. He did not foresee that his own miscalculation would become a symbol of German hubris and American industrial supremacy. He did not foresee that the sky they both shared would, in the end, belong to the Thunder.